We're on Facebook too, Joe. Welcome everybody on Facebook. Hello. Uh, if you can get down here and join us in person, maybe you'll find a seat. I mean, we're pretty much packed to the rafters here this morning, so good luck. It is always good to be with you. Real joy. And I look forward to our conversation this morning. We are going to be speaking about feelings. And we're going to see it from hopefully a wider and a deeper perspective that will really shed light and make it beneficial for your spiritual practice to approach the fact that our feelings are really shaping, in large measure, our reality. Our moment-by-moment experience are being layered in with our feeling tones. And that really is how we understand ourselves, how we're communicating. And we're going to see how all of that plays out through the teachings I brought along this morning, which includes Dr. David Hawkins and his last book, I believe it was, Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender. Excellent book. We'll also be looking at the Buddhist teachings through the lens of Thich Nhat Hanh, and also the teachings of Seth. This one is going to be the nature of personal reality that we're going to be looking at. So really good stuff to come. But before we do that, we really want to get into a state of relaxation and opening to this quieter space within the heart, within the mind. Really important to do that before we commence on this deeper dive into feelings this morning. So just find your happy place by allowing the spine to go straight, relax your shoulders, and allow the breath just to flow naturally in and out without trying to change it or control it. And just to set the foundation for this morning, we like to use the breathing technique that was given by the Buddha in the Anapanasati Sutta. And just allow yourself to be aware of breathing in, and you could even tell yourself, I am aware of breathing in. And be aware of yourself breathing out, and you could even tell yourself, I am breathing out. Continue with this awareness of breath. You could shorten it to, on the inhale, just say in to yourself. And on the exhale, simply say out to yourself. And then on your next inhale, you can say, breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. And breathing out, I am aware of my whole body. Feel the breath circulating through the soles of your feet all the way up through the crown of your head. Allow this awareness of breath and body to merge. And then finally here, breathing in, I calm my whole body. And breathing out, I calm my whole body. And you can stay within this rhythmical breathing and this quiet witnessing of the breath, the body, and the calm. You can do this with your eyes closed, or you can continue calming through the awareness of breath with your eyes open. The focal point now is to just simply rest within the present moment as the witness, the one who is aware of breathing, the one who is aware of calming the whole body. And as the body calms and the turbulent feelings and disturbances settle, the brightness and clarity of the awareness can come out from behind the clouds, perhaps a little brighter, a little clearer. Not that your awareness is a thing to be objectified and experienced out beyond you, but that your awareness lights up as if it were the space within your body and outside of your body. And here you abide as this witnessing awareness in a calm and centered body. And again, wherever you feel comfortable, let instinct or intuition be your guide. You can keep your eyes closed as long as that works and open when you're ready. But in the meanwhile, wherever you may find yourself, here's the story that we're going to begin with today. And it's quite familiar, I think, to many, if not most of us. It's found in Sufi traditions. It's found in the teachings of Vedanta and Hindu teachings, Vedic teachings. It's also found in Buddhist teachings. So wherever you look, pretty much you'll find this story. And it's about the elephant that was brought in front of the Raja, the king. And the Raja, the king, wanted to have a little fun. And so he brought in 5 blind men and had his ministers position the blind men at different parts of the elephant. I'm sure this sounds familiar. And one blind man grabbed a tail, another was on the side body, another one had a trunk, another one had an ear, another one had a leg. And the Raja then asked the question, "What is before you?" And each blind man had a different answer. And as one gave the answer and the others listened, knowing that what they had before them did not meet that description in the slightest, they became very defensive, knowing that what was before them was not what was being described by the others. And so as each began to describe what they were experiencing, they found no agreement whatsoever and only reason to argue and fight. And in the midst of that fighting, we're told in the story, the Raja, the king, laughed. And so this story has been told and retold, and perhaps we can tease out some of the many layers and meanings that are embedded within this story. I think you'll find it quite exciting and insightful. Because what we'll find as we go along today is that this is a picture of our world. The elephant represents the world. And within each point of view within the world, there is a direct and immediate experience of the world that is before us, whether it's the ear or the leg or the tail. And if one is describing the world as a long and wispy broom-like situation, then the one who's describing it as a pillar is going to find no correspondence with that reality of the other and room and reason to argue. They are now the other. They are not seeing the world the way we see it, and we obviously know we're right. We have direct experience of our world. This is the way it is. And so what happens in the story is that there are two levels of reality. There is the reality of the world seen through the 5 experiences of the blind men, and we are often told in the commentaries on this story that they represent the 5 senses, right? So when you are seeing the world before you through your 5 senses, you really get to think that this is the way life is, that we are experiencing reality in the way that it's coming through the inputs of my senses is accurate. And then when somebody else comes along and they have a different experience, they're oftentimes met with incredulity or some kind of, doubt, and there is some opposition or disagreement there. So that's the level of the world seen through the 5 senses. There is the other level of the world seen through the eyes of the king, the Raja, sitting on the throne. And what's interesting about this is we got into a little bit of it this morning through the meditation, that when you begin to calm, and we didn't do it justice, this really takes some time to calm the body, calm the senses, calm the mind. When you do that, your witnessing state, your awareness becomes much brighter, and you can begin to disengage your awareness from the entanglement with the senses. And as your awareness becomes brighter, you can actually start to see from a higher perspective how everyone has a certain point of view that is to some degree accurate. But from the place of looking from the Raja or the king, they are actually seeing just a thin slice of reality. The witnessing state is capable, through disentangling of the 5 senses, to see a much different kind of reality. So this is why we meditate. We meditate to actually undo our blindness, to get out of our opinions, our beliefs, our rigid judgments, so that we can actually see the world as it is and not through the thin bandwidth of our limited beliefs at the 5 sense level. So one of the things that we want to look at today is how our world is being shaped and how we are actually unconscious or blind as to how this shaping of our reality is going on. And so I brought along this book by Seth, channeled through Jane Roberts, called The Nature of Personal Reality. And we're going to turn there in just a moment. But one of the things that Seth is going to bring up for us to consider this morning are feelings. And we know that cliche statement of a psychotherapist, and how does that make you feel? And it's become sort of a joke for many of us to think that way. And we actually use that in our movies and our TV shows as a way of just kind of dismissing the whole process. And there is, some misuse to that methodology that often goes on, perhaps. but there's also a resistance to that methodology. In other words, we resist feeling. We resist really entering into a direct encounter with what we feel. In fact, our whole culture is to throw our attention outside and mask or escape our feelings. You know, the last thing that we often like to do is be alone with ourselves and feel what we're really feeling. And as we're going to see with the Seth material, feelings are a major part of how we are projecting our reality. And as we're going to see with the Buddhist teachings, the Buddha has this process of meditation, whereas we had calmed the body in that beginning stage of our session today, our service. He actually then takes us into looking at our feelings, touching into our feelings, and we're going to actually do that later on. But for the Buddha, it was a major part of awakening, to actually become aware of the undercurrents that are behind our perspectives, our belief systems, our fears, our anxieties, our hatreds, our bigotry, whatever is going on at the level of thought and belief. The undercurrent is some kind of feeling or Vedana in the Buddhist teaching. So stay tuned for that. But first, we turn to Seth. And if you know anything about the Seth material, it was given starting in the late 60s, but mostly in the early 1970s. And A Course in Miracles started to come around in that same time frame. Jesus was beginning to open up the Course to Helen Schuckman in 1967, when she heard on that momentous occasion, "This is A Course in Miracles, please take notes." And the voice began to teach the Course to Helen, who took it down in shorthand. And as a psychiatrist, if she had to see a client or a patient, the voice would stop. She would tend to her daily needs. And as soon as she had time again, the voice would pick up and begin giving the Course as it left off. Much the same way with the Seth material. Jane Roberts would switch on to a different channel of consciousness, and she would actually begin to speak in a different way, and Seth would use her vehicle as a way of corresponding and giving these teachings, which in many, many ways parallel A Course in Miracles. In fact, there is a quick plug that I'll say. On July 12th, I'm actually going to be hosting a new Zoom class where we're going to compare and contrast one of the Seth books, The Eternal Validity of the Soul, with A Course in Miracles teaching. So we'll go through the Seth book, and we'll see the parallels and alignments and maybe some misalignments that crop up in that teaching. So more on that later. Here for now, the Seth material, your personal reality. He starts by saying, an examination of your conscious thoughts will tell you much about the state of your inner mind, your intentions and expectations, and will often lead you to a direct confrontation with challenges and problems. Your thoughts, studied, will let you see where you are going. They point clearly to the nature of physical events. What exists physically exists first in thought and feeling. What exists physically exists first in thought and feeling. Then he ends with this: there is no other rule. There are no exceptions. Everything that you see as the external world was caused by thought and feeling. And whatever events or even the people that come around, as we're going to see, are your thoughts and your feelings manifesting. So they are there by your election, by your choice, by your script. And so this is why to look at the thoughts, as Seth is prescribing, to examine your feelings like the Buddha is teaching, is vital to the awakening process, because that's how you change the deep structure of your universal experience. You actually awaken to conscious understanding your co-creative power. Rather than doing this blindly and miscreating as a result because you're not watching your mind carefully and you're allowing all of these thoughts and feelings to constantly come around unexamined, and then you invest those thoughts and feelings with validation and reality, you are blindly or unconsciously giving form to them as your external environment and experience. There is no other rule. That's why taking responsibility is really a very important first step. Like he says in A Course in Miracles, I chose the feelings that I experience. I am responsible for what I see. Just take that in, get the impact of that, and realize how misunderstood we are about the nature of consciousness. This is what all the great avatars and teachers and saints are trying to point out to us, that you really are and have everything as this divine being, but we're misusing it out of unconsciousness or ignorance, blindness. And as a result, we're getting this collective projection of our own internal insanity. That's why the world looks the way it looks. And if we stay within the blindness, we're always seeing somebody else is at fault because of the way they see reality and what they seem to be doing at the five sense level. But in fact, the only way to shift the deep structure of our environment, and that means everything in it, is to go back to our inner state, as we're going to see. He says, each thought has a result in your terms. The same kind of thought habitually repeated will seem to have a more or less permanent effect. If you like the effect, then you seldom examine the thought. If you find yourself assailed by physical difficulties, however, you begin to wonder what is wrong. Sometimes you blame others, your own background, or a previous life, if you accept reincarnation. Or you may hold God or the devil responsible, or you may simply say that's life and accept the negative experience as a necessary portion of your lot. You may finally come to a half understanding of the nature of reality and wail, I believe that I have caused these ill effects, but I find myself unable to reverse them. These are stages perhaps along the way of taking total responsibility. If this is the case, then regardless of what you have told yourself thus far, you still do not believe that you are the creator of your own experience. As soon as you recognize this fact, you can begin at once to alter those conditions that cause you dismay or dissatisfaction. No one forces you to think in any particular manner. In the past, you may have learned to consider things pessimistically. You may believe that pessimism is more realistic than optimism. You may even suppose, and many do, that sorrow is ennobling, a sign of deep spiritualism, a mark of apartness, a necessary mental garb of saints and poets. Nothing can be further from the truth. So how are you feeling? Let these ideas really let them bring up the feelings. And one of the things that we're going to look at when we turn to Dr. Hawkins this morning is his method is to let go. But we have to first get into feeling the feelings. And one of the things he'll point out in that process or practice is that we have a resistance to feeling feelings. So if that's you, if there's any way that your mind is jumpy or distracting or avoiding or being overly pessimistic or doubting or whatever the feeling tone that you have going on right now, that is what you actually feel into without judgment, without trying to fix it or change it. Just become aware of it. And what you'll find is the more you hold the awareness on that feeling tone with compassion and quiet, watching, that feeling tone will undergo change. It will actually lighten the more you hold on, the more you hold your awareness on it. So it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's actually just to become aware of what's arising, okay, and feel it. Become aware of it. So then Seth asks this question, are you ready? Your beliefs can be like fences that surround you. You must first recognize the existence of such barriers. You must see them, or you will not even realize that you are not free. Simply because you will not see beyond the fences, they will represent the boundaries of your experience. There is one belief, however, that destroys artificial boundaries to perception, an expanding belief that automatically pierces false and inhibiting ideas. And that belief is the self is not limited. Okay? So go back to our story for a moment. How do we apply this first boundary dissolving belief to our story? The self is not limited. In other words, then, you are every character in that story. So let's start at the level of the world and the 5 blind men. You're one of those blind men, and you actually, if you were to look deeply into your nature, you are all of those blind men. Because as you continue to uncover your true identity through this letting go process, you'll realize that you're also the king sitting on the throne, the pure divine witness. Okay? So the self has no boundary, starts at the level of you seeing as the individual blind man. That's where we're getting these ideas at first. They begin to change our perspective by having us hold less tightly and being less attached to our fixed and rigid judgments and staying unconscious and resistant to feeling into our feelings. As we do this, as we let go of our attachments, as we drop into feeling into our feelings, slowing down, becoming more aware of what's going on below the surface, giving up the resistance, our blindness becomes less dark. More light starts coming in. As more light starts coming in, we start to realize that our neighbors are not our enemies. Our neighbors are another version of ourself, right? So this unity begins to come back at the level of the world. But it will increasingly lighten until we make this utter transition from being in the body of the 5 senses to being on the throne as the pure witness. We will actually see from a different perspective or an enlightened awareness. Okay? Is this clear? And then the second one is, there are no boundaries or separations of the self. And then finally, you make your own reality. Okay? So here, because you create your experience through your beliefs about yourself, and you create your nature of reality, another way to understand this is to realize that you create your experiences through your expectations. You create your experiences through your expectations. So in A Course in Miracles, Jesus will say, you always get what you want, even if it doesn't appear like good news or pleasant experiences. Underneath, this is why we have to come to terms, underneath, if we're carrying feelings from way back when that we are unworthy or undeserving or bad or wrong, and we validate those feelings, and we hold them as a core belief about our identity, and then we repress them and they go into the unconscious, they continually work behind the scenes. So whatever's arising as a form or a representation of I am unworthy, or I can never have enough, or I'm a bad person, that will arise within form as an experience, a relationship, an event that will actually tell you that in some way, shape, or form. You're undeserving of love. You will be cheated in life. Something along these lines gets played out in our drama because of these repressed feeling tones and beliefs that we have locked away and have really taken ourselves out of ever wanting to look at that layer within the psyche. And that's what Jesus will call in the Course blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So as we bring these up into our awareness, maybe even this morning, if you're willing to try this on, you'll begin to actually see that you've chosen to have these feelings here. You've made them a part of you willingly. It can never happen apart from your will. It is a choice, but then we go to sleep that we've made that choice. And then what often happens is the problem situation might show up as a child that can never get her life on track. And then we are so caught up in the external drama of always seeing something going on out there that we can never see that underneath I actually feel powerless to help somebody else, and I don't have what it takes to give somebody who's truly in need what they need. And so what we have to do is take our fixation off of the appearance and actually go back to the source and heal that wound that has us showing up in that relationship and has that other person showing up in that relationship in that feeling tone. It's just a repeat of what we've recorded. So when we change the tape within, we'll have a different dynamic beginning to show up in the relationship, and that's what Jesus calls removing the blocks and allowing room for the miracle to come in and transform these habitual patterns that are really our own unconscious denials and wounds. Okay? So he says another way to understand this is to realize that you create your experiences through your expectations. Your feeling tones are your emotional attitudes toward yourself and life in general. And these generally govern the large areas of experience. They give the overall emotional coloration that characterizes what happens to you. Period. Your emotional expectations characterize what happens to you. You always get what you expect. So like we hear this right now, and we're hearing it maybe without ever like getting the impact of what it can mean in the present moment if we change our unconscious pattern. Maybe this illness can lift. Maybe this, dysfunctional pattern that's in the relationship that I love so much will actually shift. But there's a part of us that has become so committed to expecting the same thing happening again and again. So we will always get what we want. We will unconsciously miscreate. Now, keep in mind as we talk about all of this, which is one of the things that I have to sometimes provide as a disclaimer, you're going to resist this process at first in some areas, especially these highly charged areas, physical illness, children, anything that's going on that are really highly emotional situations and states for you. Because we also get into a physiological codependency on feeling these toxic emotions. They become addictions. So we unacknowledgedly or unconsciously will oftentimes make people show up according to these expectations. You know, Eckhart Tolle in that book, The New Earth, many of us have read this. He talks about the pain body. And the pain body is really this repository of all of these negative feelings and mental states that actually is behind the scenes in the unconscious mind, controlling situations to feed. It needs to stay alive, so it needs you to experience the dramas and the traumas and the negative states so that it continues to have life. So this is why oftentimes we're in a great mood, and then the person that we really are having trouble with will call, and we will immediately go into another mental state. And before we know it, even if we're like, I really want to see them differently, God, please help me see her differently, this will oftentimes slip into the habitual pattern, and we don't know why. And it's because of these unexamined emotions that we are oftentimes habitually dependent on, and we are looking for and expecting the other person to trigger in us. And we get payoff from that. We get to make them wrong. We get to be right. We get to be the ones that, have the answer, and they have the problem. So you have to examine these things, and that's what's going to come up when you really feel into these problem areas and these highly charged feelings and emotions. You'll start to go, oh my God, they're going to start popping. This was a hidden motivation. This was a hidden design. This is why I couldn't let it go. So then he says, these emotional feeling tones give the overall coloration that characterizes what happens to you, period. Now listen to this next line. You are what happens to you. Sit with that for a second. I need to. You are what happens to you. There's no outside cause that is dictating how you feel, that's causing you pain or depression or sadness or illness of any kind. Now, we hear this conceptually maybe on a Sunday morning, and 98% of the time maybe we get up and we go off and we're on autopilot and we're letting the ego program run our life. And we come back for a little bit of a watering hole experience, 60 minutes of a different worldview, and then we're off again to fizzle that worldview away with the old paradigm of being the victim and the effect and the separate itself, and all of that can be your pattern right now. That's why he says in A Course in Miracles, at first you're going to get these concepts, and you're going to hear them and maybe half believe them. Then, as you begin to find some value to them, you'll repeat them to yourself more and more, and you'll have some partial acceptance, but many reservations. There are certain people in certain areas, this just couldn't be right. I'm not causing that. I'm not doing this. She's not the effect of my feelings. This is all happening out there. She's really the one doing it. I'm reacting. So many reservations, but then you're going to see more and more how this will become a general lesson that brings you back to realizing you're sitting on the throne of creation. You're actually divine intelligence, having amnesia, thinking you're in the world as this blind, separated self in opposition to so many other points of view that you just don't agree with. And it's very stressful because you got to tell people how wrong they are sometimes. It's just your lot in life. So then he says, your emotional feelings are often transitory, but beneath there are certain qualities of feeling uniquely your own that are like deep musical chords. While your day-to-day feelings may rise or fall, these characteristic feeling tones lie beneath. Okay? So at the surface level of your awareness, you have your feelings that will go up and down, your thoughts will come and go, and there's that beta wave brain experience of constant stream of consciousness. That's not what's being discussed here. That's causing your reality. It's below that surface level, in more of the mass of the iceberg of your psyche. You have certain deeper musical tones that are now unconscious to you, but they come up as your expectations of what life is really about and what you're capable of and how people show up and who they are when you all of that gets fashioned beneath the surface. That's why, again, meditation is very important, because when you meditate, you drop into deeper brain states and levels of consciousness that are below the surface, so that you can bring awareness back into these deeper feeling tones. And the mind has to be quiet, it has to be still in order to do that. Finishing here with Seth. Sometimes these deeper tones rise to the surface, but in great long rhythms. If you become afraid of the emotions or the expression of feeling, or if you have been taught that the inner self is no more than a repository of uncivilized impulses, then you may have the habit of denying this deep rhythm. You may try to operate as if it did not exist, or even try to refute it. But it represents your deepest and most creative impulses. To fight against it is like trying to swim upstream against a strong current. So that's why oftentimes we come to this work having gone through these struggles and crises and trials of whatever way these emotional and feeling tones have presented the challenges in our life: divorce, loss of a job, death of a loved one, physical disease or illness. And we have to realize that, oh my God, there's gotta be another way. I can't keep living my life like this anymore. It's just not working. I'm open now to seeing another way. I'm ready to give up my blindness and my judgments on the world so that I can have happiness and freedom and peace from this struggle. So this is on to our next journey here, and time is moving quickly, so I can't do it the justice that it deserves. But there's this funny part that I really wanted to share with you guys this morning. It's, you know, how when we say there's got to be another way, and then we start to channel our efforts into the spiritual life and the self-improvement and alternative medicine. If you've ever known Dr. Hawkins, seen his talks, attended them, you know his wry sense of humor. He's really sort of tongue-in-cheek, and he has a great way of poking fun at some of the things that we do to get relief. And he talks about how the experts are trying to come in with their solutions, and he says, how about the experts? Their confusion is more sophisticated, wrapped in impressive jargon and elaborate mental construction. They have predetermined belief systems into which they try to squeeze you. It seems to work for a while, and then it's just back to one's original state again. It used to be that we could count on social institutions, but they have had their day. Nobody trusts them anymore. We now have more watchdogs than institutions. The hospitals are monitored by multiple agencies. Nobody has time for the patients who get lost in the shuffle. Look down the corridors. There are no doctors or nurses. They are in the offices doing paperwork. The whole scene is dehumanized. Well, you say, there have to be some experts who have the answers. When upset, you go to a doctor or a psychiatrist, an analyst, a social worker, or an astrologer. You take up religion, get philosophy, take the Erhard seminars training, tap yourself with EFT. You get your chakras balanced, try some reflexology, go for ear acupuncture, do iridology, get healed with lights and crystals. You meditate, chant a mantra, drink green tea. Try the Pentecostals. Breathe in fire and speak in tongues. You get centered. Learn NLP, try actualizations, work on visualizations, study psychology, join a Jungian group. You get Rolfed, try psychedelics, get a psychic reading, jog, jazzercise, have colonics, get into nutrition and aerobics, hang upside down, wear psychic jewelry, get more insight, biofeedback, gestalt therapy. You see your homeopath, chiropractor, naturopath. You try kinesiology, discover your Enneagram type, get your meridians balanced, join a consciousness raising group, take tranquilizers. You get some hormone shots, try cell salts, have your minerals balanced, pray, implore, and beseech. You learn astral projection, become a vegetarian, eat only cabbage. Try macrobiotics, go organic, eat no GMO, meet up with Native American medicine men, do a sweat lodge. Try Chinese herbs, moxiocombustion, shiatsu, acupressure, feng shui. You go to India, find a new guru, take off your clothes. Swim in the Ganges, stare at the sun, shave your head, eat with your fingers, get really messy, shower in cold water. Sing tribal chants. Relive past lives, try hypnotic regression, scream a primal scream, punch pillows, get Feldenkrais, join a marriage encounter group, go to Unity. Write affirmations, make a vision board, get rebirth, cast the I Ching, do the tarot card, study Zen, take more courses and workshops, read lots of books. Do transactional analysis, get yoga lessons, get into the occult, study magic. Work with a kahuna, take a shamanic journey, sit under a pyramid, read Nostradamus, prepare for the worst. He goes on. I have to. Go on a retreat, try fasting, take amino acids, get a negative ion generator, join a mystery school, learn a secret handshake, try toning, try color therapy, try subliminal tapes, take brain enzymes, antidepressants, flower remedies, go to health spas, cook with exotic ingredients, look into strange fermented oddities from faraway places. Go to Tibet, hunt up holy men, hold hands in a circle and get high. Renounce sex and going to the movies, wear some yellow robes, join a cult. Try the endless varieties of psychotherapy, take wonder drugs, subscribe to lots of journals. Try the Pritikin diet, eat just grapefruit, get your palm read, think New Age thought, improve the ecology, save the planet, get an aura reading, and on and on and on and on and on it goes. Such is our lot when we say we have to find another way. we oftentimes get derailed into these marketed excursions on the spiritual path. A whole $1 trillion industry has arisen just for you. And it's a secret way that we give ourselves escape to avoid looking directly at what's really going on below the surface and doing something about it. In fact, according to these teachings of Dr. Hawkins and A Course in Miracles, it's actually undoing something about it. Because what we'll find is when we start to really directly confront our feelings, breathe into them, and understand them from this deeper place or perspective, we'll begin to see that underneath them is this jewel, this precious diamond that fell in the mud. The mud are all of our misunderstandings, our traumas and dramas and false beliefs. They never changed the diamond one bit, just covered it over. And if you don't look directly at how to actually undo that covering of mud and debris and obscuration that is just covering your pure consciousness, you'll never wake up. You'll go out there into the marketplace of spiritual economy. Not to say that some of these can be instrumental in helping you find how to undo, but they oftentimes create more complexity and confusion than they do answers. Can I get an amen? Blue bag's going to go around. I want to get that out of the way because we want to end in a very heightened, deeper state, and we don't want to do this after that. So the church thanks you. If you're joining us on Facebook, please, you can click on the donate button there in the comment section, and we greatly appreciate it. I in unity. Thank you for supporting what we do here. Oh, very grateful for the offerings. We just bless them and honor them as the pockets or packets of energy that will go out and change life so that all beings may come to know their true self and find true happiness. And so it is. Amen. What is it? Celery juice. Oh my God. Seriously, that is the Raja, right? Laughing at what we're trying to do to get unblind. Okay, so here's something that has proven the test of time, over 2,500 years of field research that has directly related to reality. This is one of the core teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha. And we started earlier. We can pick that up even now as we begin to have this discussion. Breathing in, I'm aware of breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware of breathing out. You want your awareness and your breath to merge as if your breath is, your awareness is riding on your breath. You can feel the breath come in, and you can feel the breath go out. Breathing in, my breath goes deep. Breathing out, my breath goes slow. Breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I am aware of my whole body. You can feel your breath going through the marrow of your bones, through all of those individual intelligences we call cells. Become aware of your whole body and this whole body breathing. Keep relaxing into this deep, slow breathing rhythm. And breathing in, I calm my whole body. Breathing out, I calm my whole body. And this calm body and deep, slow breath are the foundation for the next stage, which is observing our feelings. So breathing in, I am aware of my feelings. Breathing out, I am aware of my feelings. Now, for the sake of our time together this morning, you can choose one feeling that seems to be a continual occurrence. And the feeling can be rooted in the body, such as a toothache or a headache. Or the feeling can be rooted in your mind that arise from your perceptions. Anger, sadness. And simply, once you have the feeling that you would like to be aware of, stay within this mindful breathing and become intimately aware of the feeling that you've selected as best as you can. Let everything else drop away, and in this here and now moment, it is just your awareness of the feeling. Breathing in, I am aware of the feeling that is in me now. Breathing out, I am aware of the feeling that is in me now. And as you stay within this communion with your feeling, if it's unpleasant, the prescription here is to take that feeling in your arms, like a mother holding her crying baby. The mother is mindfulness, and the baby that is crying is the unpleasant feeling. Breathing in, I touch the unpleasant feeling in me. Breathing out, I touch the unpleasant feeling in me. And just listen here to Thich Nhat Hanh as you continue in this practice. He says, in Buddhist meditation, looking deeply is based on non-duality. Therefore, we do not view irritation as an enemy coming to invade us. We see that we are that irritation in the present moment. When we are irritated, we know this irritation is in me. I am this irritation. And we breathe in and out in this awareness. Thanks to this approach, we no longer need to oppose, expel, or destroy our irritation. When we practice looking deeply, we do not set up barriers between good and bad in ourselves and transform ourselves into a battlefield. We treat our irritation with compassion and non-violence, facing it with hearts filled with love, as if we were facing our own baby sisters. We bring the light of awareness to the irritation by breathing in and out mindfully. Under the light of awareness, our irritation is gradually transformed. Every feeling is a field of energy. A pleasant feeling is an energy that can nourish. Irritation is a feeling that can destroy. Under the light of awareness, the energy of irritation can be transformed into a kind of energy that nourishes us. Just bring your hands to heart, Anjali Mudra. And find that sacred space within the heart that is this loving, compassionate, mindful awareness that can handle all of your problems and fears and irritations like a loving mother comforting a crying baby. And bow to that within. Honor that deeper self that you are. And then know that everyone else is this deeper self, having amnesia, and deserves only compassion and kindness. And together we can affirm the unity prayer that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Namaste, my friends. So last question, how do you feel? Good? All right, stick with it. We'll see you next time. Tomorrow night, Course in Miracles, 7:15 p.m. in the classroom. Join us.